Well, they lost their opening game of the season, but 7 consecutive wins later. The Hawks are on top of the ladder. Their coach, Alistair Clarkson, joins us on the couch. Welcome again, Clarko.
Hey, Jared. Precious. Bruzy, how you going?
He's already chewed out one journo this week, Mike, so feel free.
Scared, Jared. I'm not going anywhere near him tonight.
Well, talking about coaches, we had Gary Ayres on. If you had to nominate a coach and you've got some of the, I guess, highly sought-after assistants under you, and a few have already been pinched, who would you nominate as coach of a club?
Oh, I've got a great regard for Neil Danaher. I work with him at Melbourne, and I just reckon he's a ripper. And he's a guy that's obviously doing a role at the West Coast Eagles, but he should be coaching AFL footy in my view.
Clarko, post-grand final last year, you were extremely measured and rational about the world and what the loss meant. What did you learn from the grand final?
Oh, lots. Probably the most significant thing we learned is that we just ran out of gas towards the end of the year. We got to round 9 and lost the game to Richmond probably unexpectedly. They didn't just lose it; they pantsed us and thoroughly deserved their victory. But we had to work pretty hard. Then there was probably 5 or 6 genuine sides searching for top 4 positions, and we couldn't afford ourselves the luxury of having a little bit of a lull at all in the second part of the season. So we lost Max Bailey early in the year. That's probably been significant this year with Max coming into the side. Ruffy going into the midfield is just a luxury now, where it was a necessity last year.
He's lost weight, Ruffy, hasn't he?
Yeah, but we've done that with a few of our guys. Lake's leaner, Hodges is a little bit leaner. Lewis is a little bit leaner. We're just talking about a couple of kilos, not significant, but some of those guys have had knee injuries in particular, or Achilles injuries in the case of Ruffy, and it's just such a heavy load on the players nowadays that we just think being leaner and not having to carry as much weight is worthwhile for those players.
Given where you are now, it's probably a hard question to answer, because I know the old cliche about every week at a time, but you're right. I mean, Geelong showed a couple of years ago, if you can plan a little bit ahead, if you get off to a good start, it does allow you the luxury of, if you had that opportunity to sit down now and sort of think through, when can we rest our players, looking longer term. I know it's difficult because you don't want to be seen as arrogant and getting ahead of yourself and all those sorts of things, but it could be a significant advantage come September, and we saw that with the Cats. Yeah,
well, I think Geelong have done it remarkably well over the last few years, and funnily enough, in 2008 we had some injuries in. I think we won our first 9 or 10 in 2008, and then in the second half of the year, Hodgie missed 3, Croft missed 3 or 4, Sully missed some games. We were actually really concerned. I think we went 5 and 4 up until about round 9 and 20, but it actually gave those players, strangely enough, a rest, and we were just fortunate that come September they were just fresh and raring to go and fit, and that really helped us. But it wasn't manufactured; that was out of injury, where Geelong have been able to just manage it a little bit better than any other club.
I talked to you before about being measured. The mature response you had to Jeff Kennett's outburst after round 1, but one concession you did make in those comments was that you wondered about how long a coach has at a football club. You're in your 9th season. Do you think there's a finite period that you can actually serve at the same club?
Oh, Sheeds and Alex Ferguson are suggesting
dispute that.
They're one out of the box. Listen, I think there's probably an end point for every coach. There was probably an end point for Sheeds too at the Bombers at some point in time, and that was a source of great discussion amongst their board, I suppose. But he continued to do remarkable things with that footy side.
But you're 9 years and he was 27. What's your view about the period? Most CEOs now sort of say 10 years is probably the optimum.
Yeah, I don't think I'll get the 27, mate.
Did you think seriously about the Melbourne offer when they came at you with a long-term offer?
Well, they didn't come at me, Jared. I mean, I never spoke to anyone from Melbourne, and neither did my management. So when they say they came at me, it certainly didn't come to me.
So there's no foundation for that story, that they thought they nearly landed you?
No.
Must have been talking to someone else, Mike.
Yeah.
You, Ruzy.
What about, you touched on Bailey before. I think he's just a significant player for you. He does allow you to do so many other things with Hale and Ruffy in particular. I mean, how do you see it as the coach of Bailey and the fact that you can restructure your team around him?
Yeah, we've had Max on our list for 8 years now, and we were only talking about it last week. Grant Birchall was in the same draft as Max, and he's played 160 games, 170, and been remarkably durable. And Max has had the unfortunate circumstance with his knees, but we've regarded him enormously highly, but it's only been in the last 2 or 3 seasons that he's been able to get out on the park. And last year he had a terrific pre-season and then hurt his wrist of all things and missed the bulk of the season. He came back late, but by that stage Roughhead and Hale were playing really good and had worked out a really good chemistry in the ruck, and so had the side. So we decided not to tamper with that going into the finals. Benefit of hindsight, precious. I wish we'd have done it the other way now. But he's been really good for us, and as I said, it's allowed us to use Ruffy there just as a bonus rather than a necessity.
When you see that in the figures, the extension of the targets when you're going forward, and I was going to ask you about Buddy, but it's interesting that you're going to significantly less this year than you did last year. Yeah, and
that's probably a reflection of his goal kicking as well. He hasn't had as many shots on goal this year, Bud, as what he's had in past years. But,
there are the targets, Clarko. Last year, Franklin 40% of the time. So far this year, 27%.
Yeah. We looked at that over the course of the summer, and we don't want to take a great player like Bud out of the contest, but we were just too predictable in the way that we went forward, and it's meant we've had a much greater spread of goal kickers. He's still made a really solid contribution for us this year, and we've been really pleased with his work. Really
pleased. He's kicked 2015 and been involved in 6 other scores. Is it a return you'd expect from Franklin?
Yeah, when the side's winning and other guys are getting an opportunity to spread the load, it's a great result for our club, and at some point in time he's gonna let go, and we'll benefit from that as well. But because he'll probably be able to let go when he hasn't got 3 opponents going to him, and that was what was happening so often last year. But now they have to concentrate a little bit more on it. Gunston's kicked 3 goals the last 3 weeks. It's just like, might not drop off him so easily next week, and that allows Bud to actually get freed up a bit more.
Clarko, we're told that the contract discussions have been put on hold. Does that mean that no one talks about it until the end of the season, or are there communications on a monthly basis? How's it all travelling?
Well, there's been a little bit of a changeover with Mark Evans and James Fantasia, obviously the general manager of footy operations, and Graham Wright is pretty much handling the bulk of our contracting. He's done we've made a lot of announcements in our contracting, and Mark was a key plank and part of that, of course, and Graham Wright's been a key part of that as well. So he'll be in discussions with Bud and Pickers over the course of and they'll continue to touch base. But really, our attitude that we've taken to it is that he's contracted to us for 2013. At some point in time, the 2 parties will come together, whether that's initiated by the club or by Bud. They'll continue to have discussions, and sometimes the phone call will just hit a dead end. We're hoping at some point in time it'll open up, but they'll keep having discussions and see where it goes.
You're the premiership favourites, and you've got a forward pocket who's kicked 3 goals only. He's a favourite of ours, Puopolo, and we've highlighted a couple of his chases.
He's only got 3, has he?
He's got 3 goals for the year, but he does some extraordinary things, which people actually, I think, loved the last time we threw it up. So here he is again. This was a few weeks ago. The chase was absolutely magnificent, and he was at his best again on the weekend. There he is getting the ball, then it goes forward, and you'll see him just put in this but there he is again. He's just burrowing in. And he puts in these enormous chases. His effort must set a standard at Hawthorn you must admire.
Yeah, like that little Energizer bunny, he just keeps on going, doesn't he? So, listen, he's been a really important part of our mix, and Isaac Smith and he and Benny Stratton took a little bit of Roosy's model, bringing in the mature age boys, and we've really benefited from that recruiting philosophy. And once again, that's a lot of work by Graham Wright and his recruiting team.
Clarko, was a mild skirmish with a journo, not for the first time in Tassie.
I didn't think you guys had any material for Monday night's show. I knew I was coming on. I thought I had a little bit more for you.
Very thoughtful of you.
Now, Mike, if you're going to throw these things up, you've got to look down the barrel and throw to it. This is what happened over the weekend.
Is this a weekend getaway to Tasmania to take on GWS, or do you foresee a tough game?
We just approach every opponent in the same way.
Do you go out there with your foot on the pedal for the full 4 quarters, and do you set a margin that you'd like to beat them?
You're asking some foolish questions, Matt, and I don't even want to respond to it, to be fair.
Did you get that on camera?
You didn't call him a cockhead then, did you?
Cockroach, wasn't it?
Cockroach, was it?
Well, you're the journalist amongst us.
Yes,
I mean,
Paul.
What's your take on that?
No, I'm on Clarko's side, as I often am. I've seen that stare before. No, I thought Matty Thompson went too far. I mean, he was clearly trying to goad you, and I was disappointed in the finish when he said, did we get that on camera, as if it was almost like a setup? So you're entitled to be angry with that.
Well, and all we ask for balance in journalism, and it's Matt's style that he wants to be right on the edge of every question that he asks, and you know, at some point in time, a journalist has to have some form of accountability in terms of the way that he asks his questions, and if he's not held to account at some point in time, perhaps not calling him a cockroach is the right way to go, but you know, better off to do it there and then straight to his face than...
You've always done that.
Always went straight down the line, Michael.
Now, a player that Michael wrote off was Luke Hodge.
I wrote him off.
Do we forget... You said last week you wrote him off.
Okay.
But do we forget what a great player he is? I mean, what percentage of fitness was he last year? I mean, just this year, he just looks back to that absolute... You know, he's got the nose strapping. He looks like he's trimmed up, and he looks like he's training for a start. But gee, we're now reminded of what a great player he is again.
Yeah, he's been really important for us in the games to date. Not just about his on-field presence in terms of his ability, but his on-field presence as the captain of our footy club. Couldn't train very often last year. Couldn't play anywhere near the capacity that... But in terms of, you know, perhaps people forecasting, you know, the end is near, yeah, he's played 10 or 12 years of AFL footy. He's had one serious injury, which was last year, and it was a significant injury. We didn't know at the time just how serious it was. It was a lot worse in terms of that PCL than we initially thought, and it just really cost him his fitness and his ability to impact on games. And as we've seen this year, he's been much fitter and able to carry himself through games.
I've backed off that, Ruzi. Number 33, Al, we seem to have forgotten him a bit. Probably certainly the most popular player in your footy team, I reckon, Buddy included, is Cyril. Serious injury, another hamstring. We expected he'd be out for 8 weeks. Any update on that?
Yeah, well, he won't play before the bye, I wouldn't think. His progress from that and his rehab is going really well, and we're pleased with how he's going. But yeah, he's had hamstring injuries before, so we just want to make sure he gets it totally right.
So you don't send him into the midfield? You leave him as a permanent forward?
I think we might just leave him up forward, yeah. Michael. But listen, he's a really valuable player, and you want him. You know, we'd love to explore Cyril at half back at different stages in his career too. But and you know, he's a centre square specialist when he goes in for centre bounces, and we'd just love him to be around the ball more. But yeah, we'll probably use him a fair bit in the front half, but from time to time he'll go in there. We'll just see how it goes.
We've got to wrap it up, Alistair, but very quickly, Mark Evans, what is the one rule you'd like to see him impact on in his new role?
2 goal umpires, boys.
2 goal umpires for Alistair Clarkson. Yeah. And finally, do you believe in the Kennett curse?
We haven't won. We haven't won, has he? Have we?
No. He haven't won for 10 games since he declared you.
Well, I think that Jeffrey's thinking that if I just get Clarkson out, we might win. Because after round 1, he won't be gone.
Well, it may have the ultimate test. If the ladder stays as it is, it may be tested in the grand final, and Jeffrey may be proven right.
Yeah, no, he's been a great contributor for our club, but he's not always right.
Good on you.
Yeah, JFK.
Thanks for your time. Great to have you in when you're on top of the ladder and smiling, and we look forward to talking to you again in September.
Good on you guys. Thank you.
Alistair Clarkson, coach of the Hawks.